You are listening to the All County All-Stars podcast, a show featuring franchise success stories in property management. Thinking about starting your own business and considering property management? Hear how our franchisees have partnered with All County to overcome obstacles and open flourishing franchises across the United States. Welcome to the All County All-Stars podcast. This is your host, Tanya Salseth, and today I am very excited to introduce Tim Davis, who is a franchisee who has not one, but two All County locations in Florida, right? Is that correct, Tim?
That's correct. Yeah, they're in Florida.
Awesome. And Tim's actually been with All County since 2010, so has seen the whole life cycle of the franchise. He opened his first location, All County Polk Property Management, in 2010, and then 6 years later decided to add on a second location, which he can tell us more about. But Tim, so glad to have you join us. Welcome to the show.
Well, thank you. Glad to be here.
So tell us a little bit about what you were doing prior to All County. So let's go back in time before 2010. What were you doing?
So in early 2000s, I had a couple of different businesses that I was doing. I had a very large remodeling company. So we did remodeling, and I have a contractor's license. And about 2008, everything kind of fell apart in our economy here in Florida, and I actually ended up losing that. It was a 20-year-old business. I ended up losing it and had to start all over again. And so in 2009, I decided to get a real estate license because I had always dabbled in real estate. I'd bought and sold some things and some big commercial properties and different stuff like that. And somebody told me, you should go get a real estate license. And I was like, yeah, okay, I'll do that. I needed to do something to feed my family at the time because we had our business that we lost during the crash of 2008. And so I went and got my real estate license and really struggled for the year of 2009 trying to figure out how to, and it was a tough year anyways, but trying to figure out how to make a living selling real estate. And so as time went on during 2009, I was like, I really like real estate, but this selling stuff, you can work on a deal for months and months and months, and then all of a sudden it falls apart.
And you get paid nothing. Yes.
Yeah, and then you get paid nothing.
Yep. Yeah.
And so I started doing some research. I was in my mid-40s at the time, and I said, I'm going to do some research and figure out what it is in real estate that I can really do and make a good solid living. And I found the property management franchises. There was a couple of them out there at the time. And so I did my research on them, and I decided to pick the All County one for a couple of reasons. One was they were based in Florida, so if I had a lot of questions or needed some training, I was sure that I could probably go over to the headquarters and
just show up
and get what I needed.
Nice.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
And the other one was the people that ran the franchise seemed to be the most sincere out of all the franchises that I spoke with. And so that's how I got into the All County franchise system, and that's how I started my first business with them.
And to go back to your comment about the sincerity, I do think that, obviously people go into business to make money, but you also have to like the people you're working with, right? And you have to feel like the people that you're working with are there to support you. And it isn't all about the money. It is also about helping you grow as a business owner and making sure that you have the right tools, right? And so I think that's an important thing to highlight for people who are, looking around and seeing whether, All County or maybe perhaps a different franchises for them. So 2010, you opened your first location, and it's now been a while, right? It's 13 years. So what was that like when you opened, and how was the franchise helpful for you?
Well, when we opened, obviously we didn't know much about it. I mean, I knew a little bit about renting property because I had owned property and I had been a landlord. And so I knew a little bit about that, how that worked. But I never really understood how it worked as being an agent for someone else.
Mm-hmm.
And so I learned from, from the franchise office. They had some great training, helped us get started. Obviously, when you start a franchise, you have 0 properties to
Yep.
start with. So we had to get out there and hustle and
Build
do
it.
all
Yep. One by
all the
one.
stuff that it took to get a few properties under our belt before we actually started making any money. But that was 2010. We started, just me and my wife, and I think we had one other realtor that started with us, and we just started hitting the streets and doing the process. And before long, I think probably by the end of the first year, we had about 100 units.
Nice.
Allowed us to actually, at least I think I started paying my wife a salary at the time.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I was making any money yet, but
It takes a while. It does.
yeah, it took a little while.
And that is the goal, actually, for those unfamiliar with the All County process. Is 100 properties is really is the milestone goal for the first year, right? And it's not easy to get there, but it's possible, right? Like if you just follow the steps and follow the process, like you can get there and you can have a profitable business within 1 year if you do the work. Tim's a great example of that. So at that point, you got your 100 properties. Like, what was sort of your evolution after that? Like, did you hire more staff? Did you get on more properties? Like, what was the process of, when did you decide, oh, I kind of need help here? Or was it just, let's go, get all the properties? What kind of happened after that first year?
So the goal with this business was always to have a business and not have a job. I didn't want to create a job for myself. And because I had been very successful in other businesses previously to this. And in fact, my remodeling company at that time, I had like a general manager that ran the company, and I had salespeople, and I had project managers and bookkeepers and all that stuff. I was not
solo,
real active in day to day, and so my goal was to get back to that position. So we strategically started adding people that would take some of the workload off of me and my wife, because our goal was to have a business basically that kept us in the lifestyle that we wanted to have and not have to do the work every day.
Mm-hmm.
And so we added obviously a front desk person that helped with some bookkeeping and just kind of added staff till we got to the point about 5 or 6 years ago. Well, actually, maybe 7 or 8 years ago, we actually started working on hiring a general manager. And the first couple years was a disaster.
Tell us a little bit more about that, because, it's not all unicorns and rainbows, right? Owning a business. And, I think there is a reality check, because I think people, they're like, I can quit my corporate job and I'm going to be financially free. And it's like, building a business is hard work. It's like you go to work every day, you show up, you do the things. And as the boss, you got to make some hard decisions, right? And sometimes, and that includes hiring, which I think is a really key piece for any business owner. So tell us a little bit about the struggles of hiring.
Yeah. So the first general manager that I hired was somebody that supposedly had a lot of experience in property management. And, I thought, okay, though they had a lot of experience in property management, they should be able to run an office and, make things happen. And it didn't work. It just didn't work. And it was very frustrating. I was still having to be involved regularly on making decisions, and it just wasn't working. And so finally, it got to a point where we had to cut ties with that person. We let that person go, and then I started a search for someone else that I could put into that place, and I kind of refined my search a little bit more. I wanted somebody that had some real estate experience, but it didn't necessarily have to be
Property
property
management.
management, because we can teach that.
Sure.
But I did want somebody that was educated, somebody that had a degree in business and understood how business works. So I just started looking around, and I actually found that person, and he runs the office today. So at this point, he's been with me for about 6 years. I don't have really any day-to-day responsibilities. I am here in the office, but I come in just kind of because I like being around people and I like hanging out, and there are other projects that I'm working on, different deals, because I'm an investor too. I've always been a real estate investor, so I've got projects like that, and I'm here for moral support if they ask me questions. But at this point, we do Sandy and I, we take a month or 2 months off and go around the country in our motorhome. We did that twice last year. We're going to probably do it twice this year. So we got a lot of freedom. Yeah. We don't have to be here in the office because we got good staff. We got people that are running the business, and they are actually they feel ownership in the company because we do a profit share, which is pretty cool for them. They know that if we make more money, they make more money. So
I love that, because that I think is the ultimate dream for most people who get into business, and also people who partner with a franchise, right? So the franchise comes in, has the system, you work the system, and you level up at each, kind of stage of the business to the point where you can, this is the dream for everybody, actually step out and have somebody else run it for you. And I'll attest to the fact that when I was considering All County, I had a validation call with Tim, and he was calling me from his RV somewhere, and he's like, yeah, I'm not even at the office. I'm like, sold. This is the place for me.
Yeah.
So, 1 month or 2 months that's fantastic. I think it's a level very few small business owners rise to, just because it's hard to let it go, right? It's hard to let go of that control. Clearly you already ran another business, right? And you had that business for 20 years. So it wasn't your first rodeo. For people who are getting into this for the first time, who are maybe coming from corporate jobs or from a more structured environment, what kind of tips as a more seasoned business owner would you give people like that, who have this background?
Well, I think one of the things is to surround yourself with people that complement you. You don't need people that do the same exact thing as you do. As you're getting started, you need people that will complement you and make up for the inefficiencies that you might have. And I'm kind of a big picture guy. I look at things like that, and I don't have the patience to sit and do the day-to-day stuff. It's just not something that I enjoy doing. And so I find people that do that, and that's how I was able to transition out of it. So, finding those people is key. I think also if you're looking to really create a business, you really need to think that way. It's a mindset thing. A lot of people, they get a business and they've created themselves a job. And if you really think about a business as its own entity, and its sole purpose is to create profit for the shareholders, then that's the way you look at it, and it makes a difference in the decisions that you make. I think you'll make those decisions based on, this is a business, it's its own entity, it needs to survive on its own. You need to make those decisions that way. So
that makes sense. So it sounds like, so you opened your first franchise location in 2010. And then 6 years later, you decide to open a second one. What was sort of your thought process around opening up a second location?
Well, the second location, you know, there's a big market in Central Florida, and there's a lot of all counties in Central Florida. I really wanted to get that area over there because I had some contacts in that area of people. I belong to like a investment community over there, and I really wanted to have a presence over there. I actually am. I'm the facilitator of a focus group that they have with Central Florida Realty Investors Group. I'm the landlord focus group leader.
Nice.
So I've been doing that for several years. We have a meeting once a month, and that whole group of people, they look to me as an expert in, being the landlord or having the business. So that it was just something I had already been involved in that group, and I saw the opportunity to have that franchise over in that area. So I was like, yeah, I'm going to take that opportunity so I can expand. And we do get a lot of customers from that base, and so that was something that was important to me to actually grow the business big enough. At this point, we're managing between the two portfolios over 500 properties.
Nice.
And it's a nice, it's a nice place to be. It's at this point, we got the right size staff, and the whole company's profitable, and I make a nice salary and don't have to do a whole lot. So
living the dream. And I think to take the listeners back to what you said at the beginning about how you had a 20-year business and then lost it in the recession of 2008. How do you feel about property management as an industry and a business, given that there's been some chatter, it's a recession 2023, there's all this people getting laid off at the big companies. Any worries on your part?
Yeah, so that's funny.
Tim's smiling, by the way, since you can't see him. You guys are just listening, but I can see him smiling at my question.
Well, I forgot to mention this. The reason that I did the property management wasn't just because I was looking for something, but I was actually the president of our local builders association the year that I lost my business. It was a very interesting year. I had been nominated as the president of the organization, and as I was doing that, my business was falling apart. And as I would go to the meetings for that organization, I was sitting next to this one guy. His name was Dave, and Dave was a contractor just like me, but he was doing fine. And I was like, so I'm asking Dave. I said, Dave, what is it that everything's going okay for you? And he says, well, I own a property management company too.
Bingo.
I said, I'm not just a contractor. I own a property management company. I said, tell me more about that. And he said, yeah, well, people still got to pay rent. I still collect rent. And so Dave actually inspired me to look into it closer. I had already had my real estate license, but he said, yeah, I own a property management company, and it's recession proof.
And there you go.
Tell
right?
me more. So anyways, that was
the light bulb moment, it sounds like.
Exactly. And so today, you talk about recession coming up. I don't feel like we're going to, go through any real hard times because people are still paying rent. We had a time the last couple of years where rents were just increasing like crazy. Now they're not increasing as much as they were. Property sitting a little bit longer on the market, but it's still a regular source of income. So I don't think that we'll have any problems as far as recessions are concerned.
And that's what I'm seeing too, running a real estate team, just because if you look at the housing market reports across the country, housing prices are up and they're very unaffordable in most places. And so when, the affordability gets too high to purchase, people rent. And so, it's a very stable, recession-proof business. So,
Yeah.
for those of you considering a franchise in property management, particularly, there are a lot of benefits. And Tim's a great example of like making that work. And, 13 years later, you're still in business, 500 properties, 2 locations, a general manager that runs all your stuff, RVing 1 or 2 months out of the year. I mean, you've really dialed it in well, I think. So, congratulations.
Yeah. Thank you.
And tell us a little bit about how working with All County has been over the years, because it's been 13 years with the franchise, right? I mean, I think they franchised, I'm not sure exactly what year, was it 2009 or? So it sounds like
we are franchise number 7.
Oh, so you're one of the early group of core franchisees. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And how's that been?
Oh, it's been interesting. It's really changed over the years, but it's really been dialed in. It's kind of interesting because when we started this, it was totally different. There was one business model that you were supposed to do at that time, and it was basically a portfolio property manager. So one person would manage 50 properties or whatever. And one of the things that I did early on because of my construction experience, I realized that not every realtor understood how a house was put together. So if I hired a realtor and he was supposed to manage a whole portfolio of properties, and somebody called and said, "Hey, my septic system's backed up," well, a lot of times he wouldn't know who to call. Do I call a plumber? Do I call a septic company? And so I started early on departmentalizing my business. So I would hire someone who had some construction experience that understood how houses were put together, and they would be in charge of maintenance. And then I had another person who understood how to lease property, and they were a realtor, and I would hire them, and they would be our leasing coordinator. And then I had bookkeepers that would keep all the books so that none of these realtors could do their data input and mess stuff up in the bookkeeping.
Oh, those realtors.
So anyway, we departmentalized pretty early, and as time went on, it was interesting because now it became, well, this is your choice now. You can either do, a property manager portfolio type, or now you can do
specializations.
Yeah. And so it's changed over years, and it's kept up with the times. I mean, technology wise, our corporate office really keeps up with technology. They look at all the vendors out there. They vet these vendors. They do a lot of stuff. It's almost like, and this is the way I've always looked at it, it's almost like you got an extra team member that's really super smart because it's a whole group of people.
Yep.
And they're looking out for you, making sure that you're successful, and they help with all that stuff. A lot of people say, well, why do you pay the fee for the franchise, the franchise fee? And I'm like, well, it's just like having that extra person on the team that is really super smart, takes care of all that technology. I mean, I don't know how to build websites. I don't know how to maintain.
Me either.
Yeah, I don't want to build websites.
I don't either. No, I'm happy to have them do it.
I don't even like to do Facebook. It's like,
you're too busy RVing, Tim. Who has time for Facebook?
That's right.
You're traveling. You're seeing the world. No, I get you. No, it makes total sense. I think it's interesting to hear that since you started as one of the original kind of group of franchisees, there has been an evolution, right? They've kept up. They've done new things, and I'm exactly like you. Like I mean, looking into various tech platforms bores me to tears, and I'm so glad that somebody else is doing that. And speaking of vendors, I mean, All County has that purchasing power that they can go to vendors, like, for example, our CRM system, and say, well, we want a discount. And we actually get a better deal than if you just went and signed up for it on your own.
Yeah.
Right? And that's significant monthly savings every month. So
yeah,
there are benefits to being in a larger group because they can get that purchasing power and get us better deals than we could get on our own if we just went out as like a solo, oh, look at me,
Absolutely.
X property management company, right? And it also sounds like, they provided a model, but you've had a wide leeway to conduct your business the way that you want to. They're not overly involved. They're not micromanaging. It sounds like, and correct me if I'm wrong, that you've had a good amount of freedom to like build the business the way that you wanted. Because it sounds like you
Yeah,
did specializations
absolutely.
right away. Is
Yeah.
that a fair statement?
Yeah, they've really never, they've never overstepped and said, "Hey, you shouldn't do it that way," or "You shouldn't." They've allowed us to work our business the way that we felt it should be worked, as long as it's within the guidelines. But, and I have seen them where they would spend a lot more time with someone who's struggling with a business that was struggling, where they would spend hours and hours trying to help them, and they've also like stepped in when there was emergencies, and just really helped. So it's a good organization to be part of, and good. It's almost like a family. If somebody had an issue, I've seen them step in and really help take over. So, it's a good group to be a part of.
I agree. Well, for those people who are considering a franchise and considering All County in particular, any last tips before we wrap up?
Well, I haven't kept up with any of the other franchises across the country right now, like any of the other operators, but I don't think any of them are anywhere close to the All County family. So I would suggest, if you're looking into it, to really look hard at the All County franchise, because it is, in my opinion, the best one out there. I have friends that are part of other groups, and I don't think they get the support that we do. So that's just my opinion, but for what it's worth.
Well, your opinion counts after 13 years of, working with the franchise and opening 2 locations and having 500 properties. I mean, it sounds like you've had a lot of success hiring, and, all those efforts that you put in have clearly borne fruit, since you're now, making the business work for you instead of working for the business, which is what most people end up doing when they start, or even years later, right? They can't get out. So,
Yeah.
thanks so much for being on the show, Tim. And we wish you happy trails and happy adventures with your RV. And thanks so much for being on the show.
Sure.
We hope you've enjoyed hearing this episode of the All County All-Stars podcast. Thanks for giving us a 5-star review. For more information on how All County can help you start and grow an amazing business, go to allcountyfranchise.com or call us at 855-245-7368. You're only one phone call away from an opportunity that could change your life.